Hello, everyone. I'm Arnaud Varin. For those who don't know me, I'm a senior product manager at TIBCO Spotfire, and I'll be joined today with by my colleagues in the product management team, Thomas and Miguel, who will introduce themselves later on in their sections. And so that's what's new. This is what's new in Spotfire 10.10. And we will start with the standard confidentiality and disclaimer notes. In this presentation today, we do not intend to make any forward-looking statements, but in the case we do, we have this disclaimer in place. Spotfire 10.10 is a LTS release, which stands for long-term support release. LTS releases are less frequent than mainstream releases. They are released approximately every 12 to 18 months, and they are supported with hotfixes and service packs for at least 1 year after the next LTS release is made available. Many customers stay on the long-term support releases. This approach provides an option that is more suited for strictly regulated environments, or for customers who prefer a fully supported environment for an extended period of time and without the need to upgrade. So Spotfire 10.10 is now our latest LTS release, and Spotfire 7.11 and Spotfire 10.3, both LTS releases, are still under support and they are not affected by this new LTS version. And speaking about Spotfire 10.3 LTS, what's on the slide here is part of what you can look forward to if you upgrade from Spotfire 10.3 to 10.10. And as you can see, there is quite a lot of new features. The blue ones are IDs from the TIBCO IDs portal that have been implemented since 10.3. A lot of new features, some bigger, some smaller. And I will not go through all of them today, but there are 5 features that I just want to highlight. Interactive AI was released in 10.6. This is a great example of how the fusion between visual analytics and advanced analytics makes finding insights faster and easier. You get insights just by marking data on charts. Then streaming visual analytics in web, which enables distributed real-time visual analytics applications to very large numbers of users. We got native Python data functions, opening up Spotfire to the Spotfire universe of data science algorithms, tightly integrated with visual analytics. Shared dual scales, which was a very popular request from many users, that enables much clearer visualizations when data requires 2 scales or when visualizing data from more than 1 tables. And finally, another highlight is support for PostgreSQL database as the Spotfire database. This presentation today is about Spotfire 10. I will not spend any more time on this slide. If you want more information about what's new in the latest releases, we have great what's new pages for every releases on the TIBCO community website. So what's new in Spotfire 10.10 then? This is a big update with highlights again, such as Python data functions in web and automation services, SharePoint's online lists and comments in expressions. And to present all the new things, I will start with advanced analytics, move to visual analytics, then developer and OEM. Then Thomas will tell us everything for data access and data wrangling. And finally, Miguel will tell us what's new in server and administration. Let's start looking at advanced analytics. In Spotfire 10.10, Python data functions can now be used in Spotfire web clients, which means you can deploy Python-powered advanced analytics to a large number of users. And Python data functions can also be used in automated jobs using Spotfire automation services. This is enabled by the new TIBCO Spotfire service for Python, which you can see here in the architecture, running as a node in the Spotfire server topology, just like the TER service. And the Python service is bundled with TIBCO Spotfire statistics services and is configured in a very similar way as TER. They have the same type of jobs management, job scheduling, the same types of configuration parameters. And it also means that no separated authentication is needed because they are managed on the server side. Spotfire 10.10 includes a new version of TIBCO Enterprise Runtime for R, or TER, which is TIBCO's commercially supported implementation of the R language. And these new versions improve how our packages are managed. In earlier versions of Spotfire and TER, it was already possible to distribute R packages to Spotfire clients by deploying a SPK file containing R packages. This was good for R packages governance, but in some cases, mostly OEM use cases, it was causing issues when the OEM and the end customer wanted to distribute R packages because there was a limit of one SPK file per deployment area. And Spotfire 10.10 removes this limit. It's now possible to deploy multiple SPK files per deployment area, which makes it easier to manage the R package that you use in your organization, and especially when there are multiple organizations that provides the packages to be distributed. Also new in this TER release is the ability to save SBDF files directly to the Spotfire library on Spotfire server. This is helpful, for example, if you need to save data that was generated by a TER job, and when using the data in more than one analysis file. We have a link here at the bottom, a link to a wiki article on the TIBCO community with a good example on how uploading an SBDF file to the library is working. Finally, in TER 5.1, there are compatibility improvements with contributed packages or CRAN packages. This is about 180 closed issues related to R and bioconductor compatibility, and 13 new functions in R. For TIBCO Cloud Spotfire users, there are 3 new packages available. Cartogram, which is used to create maps where the geometry of the regions is distorted based on variables, and EPSTEAM and EPModel, which are used to estimate epidemic curves and disease dynamics. Let's move over to visual analytics. In Spotfire 10.10, there is now the ability to style tables and cross tables to create more readable and more visually appealing tables, and also to emphasize specific aspects of the data, like using a highlight color for the most important columns or row that you have in your data, or coloring subtotals. You can configure the color of the text and the color of cells with colors that can be applied to both vertical or horizontal headers, to the data values, and colors that can be set for all columns or a selection of columns. This was one of the most voted improvements on the TIBCO IG portal, and we believe that this will help users find the most important information much quicker. On the map chart, it is now possible to add a new layer to a map by duplicating an existing layer from another map in your analysis. We recognize that sometimes, especially for complex data layers on map chart, it might take some time to adjust the properties of a layer. But now in Spotfire 10.10, you can set up a map layer just once and reuse it in another map chart. Now, developer and OEM. With Spotfire 10.10, developer will find a new method in the C# API that enables to add top-level menus for custom applications and document tools. And these custom menus may also contain submenus and to fine-grain the arrangement of the menu. This is especially useful when Spotfire is used as a platform to build analytical application. And since custom tools are often the most used tool for users of those analytic applications, having a direct access to those tools makes the application much easier to use. So now, in addition to custom toolbar, co-branding and white labeling capabilities that were already available, this is an extra option for customizing Spotfire. And also in Spotfire 10.10, it is now possible to have a custom export tool to follow the theme used in the analysis, the canvas styling. This includes not only the theme colors, but also the layouts, the font size, etc. Still, the default theme is the light theme, as in previous versions. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Thomas to take us through what's new in data access and data wrangling. Thomas?
Thank you, Arnaud. Let me share my screen. All right, my name is Thomas Bromberg. I'm also part of the Spotfire product management team, responsible for data access and data management. And today we're looking at what's new in these areas in Spotfire 10.10 LTS. First, SharePoint Online Lists support. So this is one of the most anticipated enhancements right now. And that's not strange at all, because according to Wikipedia, SharePoint has about 190 million users in 200,000 organizations. And many of these Spotfire users are also SharePoint users. So I'm really excited to being able to provide a native SharePoint online lists connector. And you will find it in the list of connectors. And by the way, connectors now support 59 different data sources natively. So the list is growing, and the latest addition is SharePoint Online. The first feature you will notice is that we support token-based authentication. So you sign in with your Microsoft 365 account. If you're already signed in, maybe you're using Microsoft 365 for email, you will experience a single sign-on experience when you log in. The next feature is that we automatically load your root site. We also load your top-level sites. If you don't see the exact site you're looking for, maybe you would like to load a list from Microsoft Teams. You can always add those manually here. And once you're done, and by the way, you can, in one single data connection, mix different sites from different departments. So there's no need to connect one list per connection. You can just use one and make it easier to blend data and get everything into one analysis file in the end. All right, with that, we will start to load metadata. And this is a little bit slow. The list is fairly long, so I will just show you some of the features the connector supports. So as we saw, federated authentication, multiple site support, in-memory, on-demand support, relations, prompts, and the integration is based on Microsoft Graph API, which is good for the future because it's the latest API from Microsoft, and it supports many other cloud products from Microsoft. So I'm really happy that we are using that API. Once your lists are loaded, you select them just like with any other Spotfire connector. And in this case, I'm using a 10.10 market launch project list. And this is a very common type of list among Spotfire users to do high-level project management, following up on tasks, following up on documents, their status, are they ready for approval, are they approved, how many, and so on. And you can see that SharePoint supports many different data types, and we have done our best. We worked really hard to support as many data types as possible, but there are a few exceptions. One of them is hyperlink or picture, where you might need to check or use another data type to bring that into Spotfire. This is all covered in our extensive documentation. We have worked closely with many customers to make sure we support as much as possible to start with, and when there are exceptions, to document those. So please read the documentation before you start using the connector. So with that, we can just search, of course, for the list, add it, and then we see that we add your list columns, but we also show metadata for your list. So you don't need to bring in metadata, you don't have to, and you don't need to uncheck all the metadata columns, but they're there if you need them. So kind of the best of both worlds. And once you're done, you get to the summary view, which by the way is also updated with, for example, an arrow, which makes it easier to see and know that you can expand this to, for example, insert transformations. And with that, you can see your list in Spotfire and the columns. Okay, back to the presentation. Yes, we mentioned this. SharePoint lists can be nested, and Spotfire can manage nested lists as well. You just need to use the relations feature. So right-click your selected list and add related tables. That will allow you to bring in nested lists if you're using that. So keep that in mind. It is supported. It's not recommended to try to join two lists together afterwards. Use this dialog and join them directly using the relations feature. All right, moving on to the next feature, we have made it easier to work with the data source dialog. Many of you have probably experienced writing the wrong port or needing to change the port number and seeing the username and password being erased. That's no longer the case. You can work with your server address while the username and password is kept. And that's true for the data sources listed here. If you're using BW, and many of our customers are using SAP BW, they have huge cubes and BEX queries serving data to Spotfire. Sometimes data is stored in display attributes. So you have keys, you have values, but you also have display attributes. And these can contain really critical data that basically locks a use case. We have added support for this. You will see it in the third column here in the data selection UI. And not only can you select the short, medium, and long names, you can also do custom configurations. So you can go into the edit menu and write your own presentation of data. And this is how data will be presented in your analysis. This is what you will see as categories. So you can really tailor the way your data looks in your analysis by using these display attributes and bringing those in from BW. So great achievement by the team, and many customers asking for this data and unlocking new scenarios. We are also very good friends with Teradata, and we support their latest product, Teradata Vantage 2.0. The major feature in that is that now you can query Teradata directly, even though data is actually stored in S3 or Azure Blob. So through Spotfire, you can query Teradata, you can join data between Teradata and S3, for example, and make your business users and end users see it as one single data source, Teradata Vantage. So that's not supported. We have done all the tests. We have certified Spotfire on Teradata Vantage 2, And I also added a link here to a community article describing other ways of accessing S3 data in Spotfire. So I really recommend that if you have data in S3. Cloudera Data Platform. Cloudera acquired Hortonworks. They created CDP out of the two product stacks. CDP on cloud required us to do an upgrade to our connector. We did that. We added the transport mode and HTTP path support. And we have tested support for CDP on cloud for Impala. So now you can use that product from Cloudera with Spotfire without issues. IBM Performance Server used to be known as Netezza, and according to IBM, many of their customers refer to it as Netezza still. But the official name is IBM Performance Server, and we have reviewed data types, functions, and made sure that the IBM Netezza connector, we have decided to keep referring to it as Netezza because that's the name end users are looking for. But we have made sure we support IBM Performance Server, and which is also referred to as Netezza 11 in some cases. That was data access. Moving on to data wrangling. And one of the most, SharePoint online lists was huge. Comments and expressions is too. Both were top 10 in the IDs portals. And finally, you can add custom comments to your custom expressions. Huge benefits, reducing onboarding time, make it easy to understand what your expressions are doing, why they are there, and so on. Double slash indicates that a row is a comment. You can also add it behind an expression. We have also decided to lock down the access selector. So this is something that is good to be aware of. If you don't use comments, you will have these arrows, making it easy, maybe too easy to change category or column. If you are using comments, we believe you are using somewhat advanced expressions, and we protect you from doing too quickly change column. So you need to right click and go into the expression editor to do that. This is to protect you from basically messing with your advanced custom expressions. So keep that in mind. If you're using comments, you will lose the ability to quickly change column, because that will basically remove your potentially complex expression. All right. We have, as you may be aware, we have add rows recommendations. Great, makes it really easy to merge, for example, two files with sales data that are similar. We detect that they are equal or similar, and we recommend these two data sets to be added to Spotfire as we're using a union or an add rows operation. We received feedback that this was a little bit too smart in some cases, and it wasn't always clear that this was about to happen. So we made the light bulb larger. We created a larger link to skip a recommendation. We also added a button to skip all recommendations, because there could be quite a few of them. And we also added this arrow, as I shown before, to make it easy to know that you can expand a card and do additional settings on your data. So hopefully that makes it easier to use or opt out of a recommendation. If you know that you never use recommendations, you always want to be in full control, you know how to add data to Spotfire, you don't need the recommendation engine to help you. You could go into the options menu, document, and just untick the allow recommendations on how to add data checkbox. So this is based on user feedback, advanced users who prefer not to have these recommendations at all. The data canvas, very popular. Everyone loves the data canvas. and we're continuing to make enhancements to it. The latest one is the indications of what columns and rows were affected by data transformations. So when you select the data transformation in the list, we color code the affected columns. So if you calculate a new column, we indicate which column that is. Really beneficial, especially if you have thousands of columns. We also scroll to the correct column and color code it so that it's easy to review what each transformation does to your data. Another small feature, but valuable and time-saving, is that if you have too many column matches or maybe too many relationships, you can now multi-select them and delete, in this example, all the column matches at once. And with that, over to Miguel and the Spotfire server news of Spotfire 10.10.
Thank you, Thomas. I will share my screen. Yep. Hello, I'm Miguel Diaz, Senior Product Manager for Spotfire Server, also part of the Spotfire Product Management team. And I'm going to show you what's new in Spotfire Server 10.10. Well, as requested in the idea portal, Microsoft SQL Server 2019 for Linux and 2017 for Linux are now supported as Spotfire Server Database. This is in addition to the previous existing support for the same database versions for Windows OS. As you may know, Spotfire already supported some cloud service provider managed databases to be used as the Spotfire Server Database. These were specifically Amazon LTS SQL Server, Amazon LTS for Oracle, and Azure SQL Database. As you remember, in 10.9, we introduced support for Postgres as a Spotfire database, and now in 10.10, we have added support for Amazon LTS for Postgres, Amazon Aurora with Postgres compatibility, Azure Database for Postgres, and Google Cloud Platform in GCP, Google Cloud for Postgres SQL. All this is because we want to be vendor neutral and cloud agnostic, so you can integrate with best-in-breed components, choosing the technology, features, and support you need, and be able to deploy anywhere, whatever it is, if it is on premises or, like these cases, on any of the major cloud service providers. Likewise, along the same lines, as part of keeping up with our existing software dependencies, the Spotfire Server, Node Manager, and Statistics services use now Java 11 instead of Java 8. Java 11 is the latest long-term support version. And note that the Oracle Java distribution is currently included within our installation packages, so you do not have to worry much about it. But if you are using additional Java drivers or you have existing Java customizations, those may need to be verified and upgraded accordingly. Day after day, we use more and more complex analysis and bigger data sets. And that's why we have been working to improve the performance when saving DXP files to a remote server. Small change. Well, as you saw, Spotfire 10.10, it's quite an extensive LTS release with lots of fantastic new features. Some of them bigger, some of them smaller, touching almost all the areas within the Spotfire platform. Furthermore, Spotfire 10.10 LTS is about 11 product updates within the Spotfire family. Now, if you want to learn more, we encourage you to check the What's New page in the TIBCO community and the release notes associated with each of the products. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening. And I will leave the word to Andrew.